When we talk about investments, most people immediately think of money. Stocks, real estate, businesses, things you can measure in profits and returns. But here's the truth. The greatest return you will ever receive does not come from the market, it comes from you. The most powerful investment you can make is not financial, it is personal. Think about it. Every single opportunity you will ever get, every door that will ever open, and every challenge you will ever overcome is shaped by the person you are becoming. If you want better opportunities, you must first become the kind of person who attracts them. If you want to achieve more, you must first expand your capacity. The world doesn't give you what you want, it responds to who you are. Investing in yourself changes everything because it rewires the foundation from which you operate. It is not about sudden leaps or overnight success. It is about small, deliberate actions, learning a new skill, reading a book that challenges your thinking, building habits that make you sharper, healthier, and more disciplined. These are not just acts of improvement, they are acts of transformation. The most successful people are not the ones who had the most resources handed to them. They are the ones who learned how to multiply what they had. They invested in their minds, in their health, in their relationships, and in their growth. Because when you grow, everything connected to you grows as well. Here's the critical shift. Stop waiting for circumstances to change before you do. Stop waiting for a perfect time because there will never be one. Investing in yourself is the one decision you control fully, regardless of where you start. And once you commit to it, your perspective changes. You stop asking, can I afford to? And instead ask, can I afford not to? Because the truth is, the cost of neglecting yourself is far greater than the price of investing in yourself. The cost is missed opportunities, unrealized potential, and a life that never becomes what it could have been. On the other hand, when you grow, your confidence grows. When you sharpen your skills, doors begin to open. When you strengthen your mindset, obstacles lose their power over you. So the real question is not whether investing in yourself is worth it. The real question is, are you willing to make the choice? Because once you do, you realize it's not just about achieving success. It's about becoming the person capable of sustaining it. Investing in yourself is the key. And once you turn that key, everything else begins to change. 5 keynotes of the speech: personal growth is the highest return investment. Every opportunity you attract is shaped by the person you are becoming. Small, consistent actions create transformation. Daily learning and habit building compound into lasting change. Your circumstances do not define you. Your mindset does. Change begins with what you choose to work on within yourself. Neglecting personal development carries the highest cost: missed opportunities and unrealized potential. Sustainable success is built on who you become, not just what you achieve. True growth ensures long-term fulfillment. Personal growth is the highest return investment, and it is one of those truths that often sounds simple but becomes powerful when you start to apply it. Many people are trained to think that success comes from external things, having money, connections, or opportunities handed to them. While those things can help, they are never sustainable without the internal foundation to carry them. If you give a person who has not invested in themselves $1 million business, it will collapse under their poor leadership, their lack of discipline, or their inability to adapt. On the other hand, if you give a person who has consistently developed themselves even a small opportunity, they will find a way to multiply it because they have the mindset, skills, and resilience required to turn potential into progress. This is why personal growth always brings the highest return. It changes not just what you can achieve, but who you are at the core. The difference between people who flourish and people who remain stuck is not the resources at their disposal, but their ability to use whatever resources they have wisely. Growth sharpens your ability to think critically, to solve problems, to lead others, and to adapt in uncertain circumstances. The world will always change, industries evolve, technologies advance, economies fluctuate, but the one thing that remains with you through all of it is yourself. When you invest in who you are becoming, you equip yourself with the tools to thrive no matter how unpredictable the world gets. And the return on that kind of preparation is immeasurable because it not only impacts your career, but also your relationships, your health, your confidence, and your overall sense of fulfillment. Consider the way compound interest works in the financial world. You don't become wealthy overnight by putting a small amount into savings, but over time, as that investment compounds, it grows into something much larger than what you started with. Personal growth functions the same way. Reading one book might not change your life, but a decade of consistent learning will. Practicing a skill for 1 week might not feel significant, but practicing it every day for years transforms it into mastery. Exercising once will not give you energy for life, but making health a priority will allow you to show up with strength and vitality for decades. Small investments of time, energy, and discipline into yourself compound into outcomes that exceed anything you could imagine in the short term. When people neglect their own growth, they are essentially betting against themselves. They are choosing to remain the same while the world around them evolves. This creates a gap, a painful one, where opportunities pass by because they weren't prepared, relationships fall apart because they didn't grow emotionally, or careers stall because they lack the skills and adaptability needed to advance. On the other hand, the person who values personal growth becomes someone that opportunities naturally gravitate toward. They become reliable, resourceful, and confident, not because life is easier for them, but because they have built the internal strength to handle whatever life throws their way. One of the most powerful aspects of investing in yourself is that it cannot be taken from you. Money can be lost, possessions can be destroyed, and opportunities can disappear, but the wisdom you gain, the resilience you develop, and the discipline you build remain with you no matter what. It is the one form of wealth that is recession-proof, theft-proof, and timeless. This is why personal growth delivers the highest return, because it ensures that even if you start over, you are not truly starting from zero. You are starting from experience, from knowledge, and from strength. Another return that people rarely talk about is how investing in yourself changes the way others see you. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Growth makes you magnetic because it is visible not in an arrogant way, but in the quiet strength of someone who knows they have done the work. It shows up in the way you communicate, the way you make decisions, and the way you handle challenges. Others begin to trust you more, opportunities are offered more freely, and doors open because people can sense the weight of preparation behind you. The return also extends to the influence you have on others. When you choose to grow, you don't just elevate your own life. You give others permission to do the same. You become an example of what is possible, and your growth inspires others to take ownership of their own. This ripple effect is one of the most valuable returns of all, because it multiplies beyond you and contributes to something larger. Families grow stronger, teams perform better, and communities rise when individuals choose to invest in themselves first. Ultimately, personal growth is the highest return investment because it impacts every single area of your life and continues paying dividends long after the initial effort has been made. It shapes not only the results you achieve, but the character and mindset you carry into every endeavor. It is the one investment where the effort never goes to waste, because even if circumstances shift, you remain capable, equipped, and ready to create value again. The world does not reward what you want. It rewards who you become. And who you become is entirely shaped by how much you are willing to invest in yourself. Small, consistent actions create transformation. And this is one of the most misunderstood truths about growth. We live in a culture that celebrates the big leaps, the dramatic changes, the overnight success stories that seem to come out of nowhere. People love to point to the breakthrough moment, but what they rarely see are the countless small, almost invisible steps that led to it. Transformation is never the result of a single massive decision. It is the outcome of countless small choices made consistently over time. The power of these small actions lies not in their immediate impact, but in the way they compound and reshape your identity. Think about how habits are formed. A single action on its own feels insignificant. Reading one chapter, exercising for 10 minutes, writing a single page, it does not move the needle in an obvious way. But when that small action is repeated day after day, it builds momentum. What was once effort begins to feel natural, and what once felt like a tiny step becomes part of who you are. The consistency itself becomes more valuable than the size of the action because consistency creates trust. You begin to trust yourself to show up, and that self-trust builds confidence. Over time, the compounding effect of these micro decisions creates a level of transformation that would have been impossible through one grand gesture. It is often easier for people to dream of big changes than to commit to small, daily ones. The reason is that big changes feel exciting and dramatic, while small changes feel ordinary and unremarkable. But real transformation is built in the ordinary. Anyone can feel motivated to make a sweeping change when emotions are high, but the test is whether you can stay committed when the excitement fades. It is the quiet discipline of sticking with small actions, even when they feel boring, that separates those who only talk about change from those who live it. A useful example is physical fitness. Someone might decide they want to run a marathon, but no one begins by running 26 miles on the first day. The journey starts with a single mile, repeated consistently until the body adapts. Over time, the mileage increases, the stamina builds, and what was once impossible becomes achievable. The transformation is gradual, but it is undeniable. The same principle applies to mental growth, career development, and personal goals. Whether it is learning a language, mastering a craft, or building stronger relationships, it is never one grand effort that creates mastery. It is the repetition of small, deliberate acts that build skill, depth, and resilience. Consistency also creates a sense of identity. When you show up daily for the small things, you begin to see yourself differently. If you read every day, you don't just become more knowledgeable. You begin to identify as someone who values learning. If you write daily, you don't just produce words. You become a writer. If you consistently follow through on promises to yourself, you stop doubting whether you are disciplined and start proving it to yourself. That shift in identity is far more powerful than the immediate results because identity shapes behavior and behavior shapes outcomes. The small actions become the evidence you use to believe in your own transformation. Another overlooked aspect of small, consistent actions is how they prepare you for bigger opportunities. Large opportunities rarely arrive when we expect them, and if you wait until they come to start preparing, you will miss them. But when you have built consistency in the small things, you are already ready when bigger doors open. The discipline of showing up in small ways ensures that when the chance for something greater arrives, you can step into it with confidence. That readiness is what people often call luck, but it is really the natural byproduct of consistent preparation. There is also a psychological power in breaking transformation down into small steps. Big goals can feel overwhelming, and overwhelm often leads to inaction. But when you commit to small, manageable actions, you remove the barrier of intimidation. Instead of being paralyzed by how far you have to go, you simply focus on the next step. This creates a sense of progress that keeps you moving forward. Progress, even in small amounts, fuels motivation, and motivation, when renewed daily, builds momentum. That momentum is what eventually carries you through the tougher seasons when discipline feels harder than usual. Transformation through small actions also teaches patience. In a world that demands instant gratification, the willingness to stick with something long enough to see results is rare and powerful. Small, consistent actions remind you that growth is not about speed, but direction. Even slow progress, if it is consistent, will eventually outpace bursts of effort that are unsustainable. Just as water shapes rock not through force, but through persistence, your daily actions gradually shape your character, your skills, and your future. The beauty of this principle is that it is accessible to everyone. Not everyone has the same resources, connections, or starting point, but everyone has the ability to choose one small action they can repeat daily. Whether it is dedicating 10 minutes to learning, practicing gratitude, exercising, or building a skill, the size of the action matters far less than the consistency of it. Over time, these small acts build a foundation that cannot be shaken, and they create a transformation that feels almost invisible until one day you look back and realize just how far you have come. Your circumstances do not define you, your mindset does. This idea challenges one of the most common beliefs people carry, the belief that success, happiness, and growth depend on the conditions of their lives. It is easy to think, if I had more money, I could do better, or if I had more support, I would achieve more. While circumstances certainly play a role in shaping our experiences, they do not have the power to determine who you become or what you achieve. What defines you is the lens through which you interpret those circumstances, the way you respond to them, and the story you tell yourself about what is possible. Mindset is the deciding factor that either keeps you trapped or sets you free. Every person has seen examples of two individuals living through nearly identical challenges but producing vastly different outcomes. One allows hardship to break them, while the other uses it as fuel for growth. The difference between them is not luck, resources, or timing. It is the belief system each one holds. When you adopt a mindset that views challenges as opportunities to learn, setbacks as stepping stones, and failures as feedback, you create an inner resilience that cannot be taken away. Conversely, when you approach life with a mindset that frames every challenge as evidence of your limitations, you sabotage yourself before you even begin. Your mind has the ability to shape your reality in ways most people underestimate. When you believe you are capable, you notice opportunities that align with that belief. When you believe you are unworthy or incapable, you dismiss those same opportunities even when they are right in front of you. This is why mindset is so powerful. It acts as a filter for how you see the world and determines whether you lean toward possibility or limitation. The same circumstances can produce despair or determination depending on the mindset you bring into them. It is tempting to blame circumstances because it relieves us of responsibility. If life is unfair, if the environment is against us, if others hold us back, then we are no longer accountable for our own growth. But this mindset, while comfortable, is dangerous because it strips you of power. The truth is that you may not always control your environment, but you always control your response. History is full of stories of people who came from disadvantaged beginnings, faced extreme obstacles, yet went on to achieve greatness. What they all had in common was not perfect circumstances. It was a mindset that refused to accept those circumstances as permanent limitations. When you train your mind to focus on solutions instead of problems, everything changes. Obstacles become puzzles to solve rather than roadblocks to stop you. Difficult people become opportunities to practice patience or leadership rather than excuses to quit. Unfavorable situations become a challenge to grow stronger rather than evidence of defeat. This does not mean ignoring reality or pretending everything is positive. It means approaching reality with a perspective that says, even if this is difficult, I can learn, I can adapt, and I can keep moving forward. Your mindset also influences how much you are willing to risk. Someone with a fixed mindset who believes their abilities are set in stone will avoid challenges for fear of failing. Someone with a growth mindset understands that failure is not an end, but part of the learning process. This difference determines who dares to try, who experiments, who learns, and ultimately who progresses. A person with a growth mindset does not wait for the perfect circumstances to begin. They begin where they are, trusting that growth will come through the process. The most liberating realization you can have is that your circumstances do not define your identity. Too often people internalize their environment, telling themselves, I grew up poor, so I will always struggle, or I was rejected, so I must not be good enough. These beliefs trap them, not because they are objectively true, but because the mind has accepted them as truth. Changing that narrative is the beginning of transformation. By choosing to define yourself not by where you are, but by where you are going, you reclaim your power. You stop being a product of your environment and start becoming a product of your vision. Mindset also determines the quality of your everyday life. Two people can live under the same roof, earn the same salary, and face the same challenges, but one lives in gratitude and possibility while the other lives in resentment and limitation. The difference is not external, it is internal. One has trained their mind to focus on progress, growth, and opportunity. while the other has allowed their mind to dwell on scarcity and frustration. Over time, this difference compounds not only in their achievements, but in their happiness, their health, and their relationships. Ultimately, your circumstances are temporary, always shifting, always changing. But your mindset is something you can choose and strengthen daily. When you adopt a mindset that embraces growth, responsibility, and resilience, you equip yourself with the ability to rise above circumstances rather than be defined by them. And once you realize that your mind is the true source of your direction, you stop waiting for your environment to change and start changing yourself. That is when real progress begins, because while circumstances may set the stage, your mindset always writes the story. Neglecting personal development carries the highest cost, and this is something many people do not realize until it is too late. When people think about cost, they often think only in terms of money or time. But the real cost of neglecting yourself goes much deeper. It shows up in the opportunities you never recognize, the potential you never unlock, and the version of yourself that you never allow to exist. The price of ignoring your own growth is not immediately visible, but over years and decades, it becomes painfully clear in the form of regret, stagnation, and missed chances that could have changed everything. When you neglect personal development, you limit your ability to adapt. Life is always changing, industries evolve, technology advances, and the demands of the world increase. Without growth, you remain the same person facing a constantly shifting reality, and eventually you fall behind. A person who chooses not to learn, not to grow, and not to sharpen their skills slowly becomes outdated. Their knowledge no longer fits the needs of the present, their habits no longer serve their goals, and their mindset is too rigid to navigate change. The cost here is not just professional, it is personal, because stagnation affects confidence, relationships, and overall fulfillment. One of the biggest costs of neglecting yourself is lost opportunity. Opportunities do not wait around until you feel ready, they arrive, and if you have not prepared, they pass by. The door that could have led to a new career, the relationship that could have enriched your life, the challenge that could have expanded your capacity. These are missed not because you were incapable, but because you failed to prepare. Growth is the process of getting ready before the opportunity shows up. Without it, you stand in front of open doors but are unable to walk through them. Over time, the accumulation of missed opportunities creates a life smaller than it could have been. Neglecting personal development also carries the cost of diminished confidence. Confidence is not built from pretending you are capable. It is built from evidence that you have invested in yourself, sharpened your abilities, and strengthened your mindset. When you skip that investment, self-doubt grows louder. You hesitate to take risks, you avoid challenges, and you settle for less because deep down you know you are not prepared. That lack of confidence shapes the way you carry yourself, and the way you carry yourself shapes how others perceive you. Over time, the cycle of inaction and doubt deepens, making it harder to break free. There is also a relational cost to neglecting growth. Personal development is not just about skills and knowledge, it is about becoming a better communicator, a better partner, a better leader, and a better friend. When you fail to grow emotionally and mentally, your relationships suffer. Misunderstandings remain unresolved, conflicts escalate unnecessarily, and meaningful connections weaken because you have not developed the tools to nurture them. The inability to grow inwardly creates distance outwardly, and the cost is felt not only by you, but by those closest to you. Another overlooked cost is the erosion of resilience. Life will always bring challenges, setbacks, and losses. When you have invested in personal growth, you have built resilience, adaptability, and the mindset to withstand adversity. But when you neglect it, even small challenges feel overwhelming. You crumble under pressure because you lack the inner resources to endure. The cost of this is not just temporary discomfort, it is the inability to rise when life demands strength. Resilience is not built in the moment of crisis. It is built long before, through the daily practice of growth. Without it, crises do not make you stronger, they break you. The most painful cost of neglecting personal development is regret. Regret is the weight of knowing you could have done more, been more, and lived more, but chose not to. It is not born from failing. It is born from not trying, from knowing you settled for less than what was possible. People often fear the cost of investing in themselves, whether it is the money for a course, the time for reading, or the discipline of building habits. But that cost is nothing compared to the price of looking back and realizing that years have passed and nothing has changed because you chose comfort over growth. Neglecting growth also robs you of fulfillment. Achievement alone does not bring fulfillment. Becoming who you are capable of being does. When you stop developing yourself, you stop expanding your potential. You live in a narrow version of life, one that may feel safe but is ultimately unsatisfying. Human beings are designed to grow, to evolve, to move forward. When that need is ignored, dissatisfaction seeps in no matter how comfortable the external life may look. You may have stability, but without growth, stability feels like stagnation, and stagnation slowly turns into frustration. The highest cost of all is that neglecting personal development is cumulative. The longer you delay growth, the harder it becomes to start. Habits of inaction become ingrained, self-doubt becomes heavier, and the gap between who you are and who you could be widens. Every day you choose not to grow, the price increases. It is like ignoring interest on a debt. It compounds until it becomes overwhelming. On the other hand, every small act of growth you commit to reduces that cost and replaces it with return. The truth is, personal development is not optional. You are either growing or declining, moving forward or falling behind. To neglect it is to accept the highest cost of all, the cost of an unlived life. Sustainable success is built on who you become, not just what you achieve. At first glance, this idea may seem abstract, but it is one of the most practical truths about growth and accomplishment. Achievements on their own are fragile. They can be temporary, they can be lost, and they can be taken away. But the person you become in the process of pursuing those achievements is something permanent. The skills you develop, the discipline you practice, the resilience you build, and the wisdom you gain are qualities that remain with you long after a single accomplishment is behind you. This is why sustainable success depends less on the outcome and more on the character and capacity you build along the way. Many people chase success as if it is a finish line. They believe that once they reach a certain goal, earn a certain amount of money, or achieve a specific milestone, they will finally feel secure and fulfilled. But what often happens is that once the goal is reached, the satisfaction is short-lived. They soon realize that the achievement itself does not guarantee lasting success. If the person behind the achievement has not grown, if the mindset and habits are not strong enough to sustain the new level, then success quickly unravels. This is why some people gain wealth only to lose it, achieve recognition only to collapse under the pressure, or build relationships only to see them fall apart. Achievements without the foundation of growth rarely last. Who you become matters because sustainable success requires consistency, and consistency can only come from identity. When you achieve something without internal transformation, you rely solely on external motivation or for circumstances. But when you build yourself into the kind of person who naturally lives with discipline, integrity, and resilience, success becomes a byproduct of your identity rather than a constant struggle to maintain. For example, someone who loses weight through a temporary burst of willpower may reach their target, but struggle to sustain it, while someone who has become disciplined about health naturally sustains it because it aligns with who they are. The same principle applies in business, leadership, creativity, or any area of life. Another reason who you become matters more than what you achieve is that life is unpredictable. Circumstances change, industries shift, and unforeseen challenges appear. If your success depends only on a single achievement or condition, it becomes vulnerable. But if you have become the kind of person who can adapt, who can rebuild, who can innovate, then no matter what changes, you are able to create new opportunities. Success is no longer something you cling to. It is something you can generate repeatedly because it flows from the person you are. This is what makes success sustainable. It is rooted in growth, not in circumstance. Becoming the kind of person who can sustain success requires patience. It demands a focus on process rather than just results. Results are milestones, but process is transformation. For instance, learning how to lead people is a process filled with mistakes, lessons, and growth. The outcome might be a successful project or a thriving team, but the true value lies in the leadership capacity you have developed, which you will carry into every future project or team. The external achievement is temporary, the internal growth is permanent. This principle also reveals why shortcuts rarely lead to lasting success. Shortcuts may help you achieve quickly, but they do not help you grow deeply. You may gain recognition without building skill, wealth without building discipline, or influence without building character. But when challenges arise, as they inevitably do, the lack of inner growth is exposed and everything built on shortcuts collapses. Sustainable success cannot be rushed because the person you need to become to sustain it requires time, effort, and consistency. The measure of true success is not how high you rise, but how well you can remain standing once you are there. Many people can achieve for a moment, but few can sustain it over years or decades. The difference lies in the inner foundation. Sustainable success comes from values, habits, and mindset that remain steady even when external circumstances fluctuate. If you become the kind of person who is adaptable, disciplined, and committed to growth, then you will always find ways to thrive no matter how the landscape shifts. There is also a deeper dimension to this truth: fulfillment. Achievements can bring pride and excitement, but fulfillment comes from knowing you are living as the best version of yourself. Becoming someone capable of sustaining success is about more than holding on to external rewards. It is about embodying the qualities that allow you to live with purpose, to contribute meaningfully, and to inspire others. A person who has grown into their success not only enjoys it, but multiplies it by positively impacting those around them. Who you become also determines how you handle success. Without growth, success can inflate ego, create complacency, or breed fear of losing what you have. But when you have invested in yourself, success humbles you rather than blinds you because you understand the process it took to get there. You value growth over status, progress over perfection, and contribution over recognition. This perspective ensures that success does not trap you. It fuels you to keep evolving. At its core, the pursuit of sustainable success is about focusing less on the external trophies of life and more on the internal transformation. The achievements matter, but they are secondary to the growth that enables them. When you prioritize becoming overachieving, you discover that success is not something you reach and hold on to. It is something you embody and carry forward into every season of life. That is why the foundation of sustainable success is not found in the things you gain, but in the person you become. When you look at the journey of growth, a clear truth emerges: everything begins and ends with you. The world does not hand out lasting success, fulfillment, or meaning to those who wait. It reveals them to those who invest in themselves. We explored how personal growth delivers the highest return because it expands what you are capable of attracting and sustaining. We saw that transformation is not about dramatic leaps, but about the small, consistent actions that compound over time into extraordinary change. We recognize that circumstances may shape your environment, but your mindset ultimately defines your direction, and it is that inner lens which determines whether you remain stuck or rise above. We acknowledge the high cost of neglecting growth, the lost opportunities, the weakened confidence, the erosion of resilience, and the regrets that come from settling for less than your potential. And finally, we understood that sustainable success is not about what you achieve, but about who you become, because only the person you grow into has the strength, wisdom, and identity to hold success in the long run. The message is simple yet powerful. Investing in yourself is not optional. It is essential. It is the one decision that unlocks every other possibility in your life. It is the difference between living reactively at the mercy of circumstances or living intentionally with the clarity and courage to create the life you envision. When you commit to your own growth, you are not just shaping your future. You are shaping the impact you leave on others, the opportunities you make possible, and the person you prove to yourself that you can be. So the challenge is not whether the investment is worth it. The real question is whether you are willing to make the choice today. Because once you do, you discover that everything you desire, confidence, success, resilience, fulfillment, flows naturally from the person you decide to become. And when you choose to grow, when you decide to make yourself the greatest investment of your life, everything truly begins to change.